Hello everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about the fourth dimension and what really happens in the fourth dimension and what you can do if you lived in the fourth dimension. So first of all, what we're going to do is scale this down. So instead of thinking about going from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, which is kind of impossible because our brains can't think in that way, we're going to use an analogy. So we're going to go from the second dimension to the third dimension. Okay, so let's say that we have one layer in the second dimension. So let's just say that this is a two-dimensional world. Of course, this is a plane. This blue rectangle I just drew is going to be a plane in space. However, for the people and whatever exists in the second dimension are living in there, whoever's living in there, they won't see the space around this. They're just going to see whatever in here. So let's say there's a person here and there's some blue ball in this layer. And the person has some sort of like pickaxe or something, whatever they want, and they're trying to mine inside of here. They're going to make this ball hollow, but they don't know how to do it. Well, if they were in the third dimension, they could do it. But in this case, because they're in the second dimension, they can't somehow get inside this circle or ball, whatever they call it in the second dimension. But I guess it would be a circle. So in the same way, if we move up to the third dimension and the fourth dimension, so let's say we're in space now instead of just a plane, and we had a sphere. And we also have some sort of pickaxe or whatever it is you use to drill stuff with. I guess you could also say it's a drill. And we're trying to make this ball hollow, but the only way to do that in a 3D world is to open the ball up and then cut out the insides and then put it back together. But if you couldn't open the ball up, then the only way to do that is to go, well, there might be a different way, but you could go into the fourth dimension and you'll be able to essentially cut a hole in the ball. And if that doesn't make sense, let's move back to the second dimension. So in the first dimension, everything is on a line, and there's just points on the line. So a person is just going to be a point, and there's their ball that they play with. Actually, the ball is going to be a line on the point. And somehow they want to cut a hole into this line. So they want to do something like this and take out this part right here. And the only way to do that is to go into the second dimension, so move this way into a different line, and then cut out the line or ball, whatever they call it. So as you can see in each of these examples, the only way to kind of get inside a ball is to go into the next dimension. So you can do a lot of cool things by going into the next dimension, as we saw earlier. Now, what if there is an object that is in 4 dimensions and it's going through our space? So what would that object look like? Well, first of all, we'll just go back to our analogy with going from the second dimension to the third dimension. So say we have a 2D world, and this is us. We're just stick people, and we're just standing there, and some sort of miracle happened, and there's this 3D sphere that's going through this world. So this is just some sort of 3D sphere. So maybe some person in the 3D world decided to throw a ball at this plane, and it went exactly right through the plane. So what would happen is the person since the person's just going to see lines, they would see a dot at first, and then it would slowly grow bigger. And those are kind of just like the parts of the ball, and then become smaller. That's what they would see. It would just go in this direction. Now, in the 3D world, if somebody threw some sort of sphere, 4D sphere through our 3D world, it would do something kind of like what we saw earlier with the second dimension to the third dimension. It would be like a sphere. We would see a sphere, and the sphere would slowly get bigger until it got to its maximum size, and then it would finally shrink back. So that would be kind of cool if we saw a 4D object like that. But essentially, it could just appear out of thin air because it's going through the fourth dimension, and we can't see the fourth dimension. Just like the people in the second dimension can't see what's going on outside of the second dimension, we can't see what's going on outside of the third dimension. So we know that a 2D space is called a plane, and a 3D space is called a space. Now, what would happen if we could move between 3D spaces? So, let's just go back to our 2D to 3D analogy. So, what if a 2D person could move between planes? So, let's say that this is a 2D person's plane. The person, I'm not a good drawer, but here's your stick person. And they're in one of the planes, and they somehow made some sort of machine thing that can take them to another plane. So let's make a new plane, and this plane is going to be right next to this guy's plane. So he moves into the second plane, and the second plane could be completely different, or it could be also completely different. It just could be a whole new world for the person who moved into the second dimension, who moved through the third dimension to another plane. Now, in a 3D world, there are infinitely many planes, and as you keep going, this goes on infinitely many times, and that's what makes a 3D world. So, technically, you could say that a 2D plane is just a slice of the 3D world, an infinitely small slice of the 3D world. And so, while the 2D person could only see their world, a 3D person can see that 2D person's world and everything else, all the other planes. So, that's pretty interesting. So, if we move that analogy to a 3D to 4D analogy, so we can move through the fourth dimension to another 3D dimension, then we would also be seeing completely different things, and it could be a basically different universe. So, if we have a completely different universe, and a 4D person lives in that universe, and there's many universes, then this 4D person would be able to see all of these universes or spaces, as we call a 3D area. So, as we can see, a 4D person basically has advantage over all 3D people, and you shouldn't be messing with a 4D person. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be making more videos in the future, and I'm going to try to make them more frequent because I haven't been uploading in a while. But anyways, thanks for watching.